Did you know that almost every culture on Earth has some kind of dragon story? China, Scandinavia, Mesopotamia, the Americas. All of them describe these massive, scaly beasts with wings, claws, and sometimes even fire. Now, that's weird, right? These people lived oceans apart. They had no way to swap notes. And yet, the creatures they describe are eerily similar. So here's the big question, were dragons just myths? Or did something real spark all these stories? Dragons aren't new, they go back to the very first stories humans told. In China, they weren't scary at all. Dragons brought rain, prosperity, and wisdom. They were painted on the emperor's robes and carved into jade. Even today, you'll see them at Chinese New Year parades, dancing down the streets. Mesopotamia had a very different dragon, Tiamat, a giant chaos serpent. She fought the gods, and when Marduk killed her, her body was split to form the sky and the land. In Norse mythology, dragons symbolized greed. Fafnir was once a man, but his lust for treasure transformed him into a poisonous dragon. And in Central America, the Aztecs revered Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, a god who brought knowledge and creation. So here's the kicker, different continents, different cultures, but all of them imagine dragons. Why? Some scientists think it's evolutionary. Our brains are wired to fear snakes, raptors, and big cats. Dragons, they say, are like the ultimate mash-up of every predator we're programmed to avoid. But maybe dragons didn't just come from our imaginations. Maybe they came from the ground. In China, farmers dug up massive bones and assumed they were dragon remains. For centuries, those bones were ground into powder and sold as medicine. Today, we know they were actually dinosaur fossils. In Austria, a giant skull was discovered in 1335. People thought it was the head of a dragon, the lindworm. Modern science later identified it as a woolly rhinoceros. In France, a 13-foot skeleton was paraded as the remains of a dragon slain by Saint Clement. Eventually, scientists figured out it was a crocodile. And in the early 1900s, when explorers found the Komodo dragon, an actual 10-foot-long lizard with venom and a deadly bite, the headlines called it a living dragon. So maybe dragons weren't entirely made up. Maybe they were built from fossils, crocodiles, lizards, and a whole lot of human imagination. Dragons don't just show up in folklore, they're in holy texts too. The Bible talks about Leviathan, a sea monster that breathes fire and smoke. In Isaiah, it's called the dragon in the sea, and in Revelation, there's a red dragon with 7 heads that wages war against heaven. In Christian tradition, saints became dragon slayers. Saint George is the classic story, charging in on horseback and spearing the beast. Saint Martha, on the other hand, defeated her dragon with prayer, not violence. Other faiths have their own versions. In Hinduism, the dragon serpent Vritra held back the world's waters until Indra, the storm god, struck him down. In Babylon, Marduk battled Tiamat in a fight that created the cosmos. Wherever you look, the dragon stands for more than just a monster. It represents chaos, destruction, greed, or evil itself. Fast forward to the Renaissance. Europe was obsessed with dragons. Naturalists drew them in books, explorers claimed they'd seen them, and priests used them as examples in sermons. In the 1800s, showmen made money by displaying fake dragon skeletons. They'd cobble together crocodile bones and fish spines, then charge admission. People believed it. Even in the 20th century, dragon rumors stuck around. Explorers in the Congo talked about the Mokele-mbembe, a creature like a living dinosaur. Fishermen in Scotland swore they saw the Loch Ness monster's long neck rising from the water. Science eventually explained these away as hoaxes, mistakes, or wishful thinking. But the fact that people wanted to believe, that's powerful. So why do dragons stick with us even today? Because they're flexible. To the Chinese, they symbolize prosperity. To the Norse, greed. To Christians, evil. In modern stories, they can be terrifying monsters or noble allies. Think of Smaug in The Hobbit, hoarding gold, or Daenerys' dragons in Game of Thrones, ruling the skies. The Welsh flag still shows a proud red dragon. Bhutan has dragons carved into temples. Kids dress up as dragons on Halloween. Gamers fight them on screens every day. Dragons never went away, they just changed with the times. And maybe that's why, when we see a fossil tooth or spot a monitor lizard, we still get that little chill. That whisper, maybe, just maybe, the old stories were true. So, were dragons real? Not in the fire-breathing, sky-darkening sense, but in another way. Yeah, They were real in the fossils mistaken for their bones, real in the crocodiles and Komodo dragons that spark the imagination, real in the fears and instincts we carry as humans. And that's why the legend never died. Every time we tell a dragon story, watch one in a movie, or see one drawn on a flag, they're alive again. So what do you think? Were dragons just stories, or is there still some truth hiding in the myth? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Were dragons real or just myth? I personally believe they were real.